not being able to see our clients face to face, you know.
Mm. Okay, people are starting to join, so I think we should start now. We should always try and start on time. So, Bismillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Welcome again to another Insight to Islam Zoom discussion. A very, very important discussion today dealing with the issue of mental health in the Muslim community. So what we do today, we will discuss the topic with our mental health practitioner, Brian Ismail Hassan. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So we'll have the discussion first. Then we will, if anyone wants to ask any questions at the end of the discussion, you can type them in the chat, or you can wave, and we'll allow you to ask questions after this discussion, because I presume everyone's got loads of questions. I've got loads of questions as well. So without further ado, excuse me, my voice, I'm just getting over the flu, but hopefully, inshallah, I should be okay. So let's start. Let's go right into the topic. The issue of mental health in the community. Since I've been a Muslim, I've seen a few cases, and unfortunately, I've seen the lack of experience, the lack of how to deal with an individual who's having a breakdown, and normally it ends up with the person going into hospital. Then they're on drugs. Then unfortunately, what I've seen anyway, the individual doesn't keep up with taking these drugs, and then it ends up in a disaster, and everyone raises up their hands and says, well, okay, what can we do? So it's very important that the community needs to be educated as to how to deal with the issue of mental health within the community. So mashallah, alhamdulillah, the brother Brian Hassan Salaam has volunteered to educate us in this very, very important topic. So my first question is, first of all, you're a revert Muslim, or you was born Muslim, or can you just give us a brief
Yeah, so
how
yeah,
you became Muslim?
I would say revert.
Okay.
My stepdad who raised me is Muslim,
Okay, alhamdulillah.
and my mum she's a Christian. So I was
Okay.
raised in a household where more time I would be going to church. My stepdad wasn't really onto me about Islam in that sense.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's really more my background. And then it wasn't until later on, so maybe when I was about 22, 23, that I embraced Islam.
Okay.
But prior to that, I would say I was more going to church. I kind of stopped when I was like maybe 14, 15, as you start to ask those questions, and a lot of it didn't kind of make sense to me. So I kind of just didn't have a religion, but just believed in one God. And later on, due to life events and research, Allah guided me to Islam.
Alhamdulillah. Now, was you a mental health practitioner at the time, or?
No, so at the time, we're going way back as well now. So at the time, I was definitely a healthcare assistant.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, oh yeah, so my son was born. So yeah, I had more or less just embraced Islam as I was going to uni, to become a qualified mental health nurse. But prior to that, I was a healthcare assistant, working in Springfield, majority of the time.
Okay, which is, you said, is a mental health hospital in is it Tooting?
Yeah, in Tooting. Yeah, it's a very very big hospital. They have like almost every kind of sector you can think of, from eating disorder to the community team, adolescent, forensic, acute, PQ. The whole lot is there in Springfield.
Okay, obviously the mental health issues is a wide subject. From your experience, what do you think are the main issues facing the society? What are its causes, and what
Wow.
are, I know it's big. I know we're gonna break it down. And what are the remedies? Okay, so from what I've seen, I've seen emotional breakdowns leading to medication, people being medicated, and then they just seem lost. They don't seem to recover after that. So if we can just deal with this so-called emotional imbalance of an individual, how to protect oneself from that and how to deal with that issue so it doesn't increase into a mental health issue.
Well, yeah, as you said, it's very, very vast. I
Mm.
suppose what we have in terms of advantage compared to many other people is having Islam.
Yes.
So, I mean, first and foremost, I would always say to, you know, our Muslim brothers and sisters to always turn to Allah,
Mm-hmm.
turn to His book, and turn to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Sunnah.
Mm-hmm.
This is first and foremost. This is before any medication or anything like that, because as they say, you know, the book of Allah is a remedy within itself. So
Yes.
you know, this is first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but as you're saying, because it's quite vast,
Mm-hmm.
it is very, very difficult, because I mean, the caseload that I have maybe about 27 clients.
Okay.
And out of the 27 that I have, at least 20 are involved in some kind of drugs.
Okay. If I want to go back, so I want to talk about a bit of your education. So you was a nurse first, and then you went to university to specifically study mental health. Was
Yes,
that your route?
so prior to that, I wasn't classed as a nurse. I was more classed as a healthcare assistant.
Yes.
So someone who's supporting nurses. So a lot of the time, and believe it or not, I kind of love that job more than I did with nursing. Because with nursing, you got to do a lot of paperwork, a lot of care plans, and so forth. It takes you away from that sort of frontline activity. Whereas as a healthcare assistant, you're not qualified, but you're really hands-on with patients, with clients.
Yes.
You know, you're interacting with them more. You go on community leave, you go on garden leave, and like 90% of the time, you're just engaging with them, talking and getting to know them and understanding where they're coming from. And because I'm, you know, born and raised in South London, a lot of the people that are there are from South London. And for whatever reasons, we can go into the whole conspiracy theories and so forth, but majority black.
I want to interject a story. I know we're about to do it now, but I'm doing it anyway. So this is about 20 years ago when I was in a bookshop. So another mental health worker came in, we were having a discussion, and somehow I got onto the issue of mental health. He said, a lot of the mental health issues that's happened with black people is because, this is what he said, black men don't know how to channel their emotions. That's what he said to me. I'm thinking, what do you mean? He said there's a kind of bravado. Man don't want to cry. Man don't want to tell his brother that he's having stress. He don't know how to deal with marriage issues. And that bottling up can make a man lose it. This is his theory. I don't know whether it's right or not, but that was just one of his theory. As you said, drugs is another issue. But can you shed some light on that? Specifically, is there a spike to do with black people? Is there a specific spike? Is it drug related? Is it to do with emotion, stress? Can you try and break it down somehow?
I mean, there might be some truth
from your caseload,
there might be some truth to what he's saying, but then what would you say about the women? Because the majority in terms of women, there are black too. So you know, it go beyond that. And I'm not saying that there isn't an element of truth to that, but ever since this George Floyd issue happened, the NHS have been forced into looking into issues about, you know, the inequality of black people within the mental health services. And, you know, we've been looking into things like misdiagnosis, not understanding one's culture. They have something called a Section 136, which allows police to detain an individual due to them believing that maybe there's something wrong with them mentally. So there's been many stories where, and I talk about this all the time. My father, if you hear him speaking on the phone, or even my father-in-law, you hear him speaking on the phone, and he's shouting on the phone and seems like he's being aggressive, but in reality, he's having the best conversation of his life. He's you know, he's enjoying himself and having this conversation with someone on the other line. Whereas when you sort of face that with police, police start thinking that there's something wrong with that person, put them on a section 136. They end up going into the cell. They end up getting assessed, and then bang into hospital. This happens quite a lot.
Yes.
So this is again to do with the whole not understanding one's culture. And then there is that whole element of racism as well within this field. So there are many different factors as to why it is that there are more, as they say, the BAME community within mental health services. But this is something that is highly being addressed right now within NHS at the moment.
I suppose if you look at from angle of the Muslim community, you might speak about the refugee crisis. You might talk about homelessness, Muslims being in a certain situation of maybe low income areas, so that will bring on additional stress and pressures, large families. Is there any evidence that could also lead to pressures that could also lead on to mental health issues?
Yeah, no, of course. Again, I don't want to, stereotype and say it's all drugs, because it's not all drugs. As I said, mental health is quite vast.
Yes.
And on aside from the drug element, there are issues about stress within itself, and stress comes in many different ways. As I said, whether it be exams. I just did a recent assessment where somebody had a breakdown due to the pressures of exams. Very issue that we're dealing with now with lockdown. A lot of people that are suffering. I mean, the amount of referrals that we're now getting have doubled. They've literally doubled and increasing more and more month by month.
How would you term a breakdown? How do you term a breakdown before it gets onto a mental stage issue?
Well, when you say a mental state, and this is something that I want to clarify as well to people, that when we talk about mental health, I think it's very important for people to not panic when they hear this phrase, this terminology. Mental health is something which is literally is the same as your physical health. So from having a cold to having cancer, it is the exact same thing with mental health, such as on a weekend, you don't feel like getting out of your bed, you're feeling a bit low, you're feeling a bit down, just decide to not have a shower or anything, and you're just in your bed the whole weekend. But come Monday, you're back to normal and you're back to work again. For that period, you had suffered with a mental health problem. But it wasn't clinical. So it didn't need for you to be medicated or anything like that. It was just a case where you went through a small depression and you just got over it, no problem. That would be equivalent to, in terms of physical health, that would be equivalent to like having a cold.
Got you.
Whereas having, let's say, cancer on the physical side, equivalent on the mental health side, that might be that you suffered with, I don't know, psychosis or severe depression, where you're now having to take medication and so forth. So I don't want people to feel that, mental health is something we...
Oh, sorry, 1 second. Fadl, sorry.
Yeah, all of us, every single one of us have suffered with some kind of mental health problem, one way or the other, whether it's clinically or whether it's not clinically, one or the two. So I think that's something that's very important to clarify, because there is this taboo that people don't want to discuss mental health, because it's like only affects certain people. If you have mental health problems, then there's something wrong with you, and that's not the case at all. That's a misunderstanding of mental health.
And so at the early stages, or when you say when it's not clinical, you're saying when it's not drug related, majority of issues can be dealt with through what will be the process. Obviously, we have the Quran and Sunnah. We resort to prayer, making dua. So you're saying majority of issues. How would you treat it then? Like for a non-Muslim, then, if it's just an issue of depression.
I mean, even for both, even for Muslim and non-Muslim, I think it's important to reach out. Very, very important to reach out and speak to family and friends. because you know it is very, very important. As you said, even though, as you said, we have the Quran and we have the Sunnah and we have prayer. You know, sometimes you feel like you need to see that a person face to face. You know, pick up the phone where you can actually speak to someone and someone is responding back to you. I think this is very, very important. I mean, South London and Maudsley, they have a crisis line, and this crisis line is 24 hours. You're able to call them up, and if you're literally having a crisis, you're having a problem, you've got someone on the other end of the line who you can talk to, and they give you some support there and then over the phone. So likewise, it would be good if within the Muslim community, you know, we can support each other in that way as well. That we're able to call up a brother or call up a sister can call another sister, and you know, be able to speak to them and not feel like you're going to be judged with whatever it is that you might be going through. This is something that is definitely a good remedy.
I mean, just to plug the the Insight to Islam network that we're trying to build, that people should be able to reach out to each other, and this is how the brother or sister should be, that we have to be able to talk to someone. Don't let these things boil up. If we don't build this network and understanding between each other, as you said, it could snowball into something more seriously. So this is really just to emphasize the importance of setting up this network between us. That, you know, it could help you out seriously in these days. Sorry. So going on to the next stage, the serious stage of now, where, because unfortunately the 3 or 4 cases I've seen has led on to people being sectioned and on drugs. It was if to say that the person couldn't be reached, the issue could not be solved by speaking, by one-to-one discussion. The individual was lost, and this is what we're trying to find a solution for. That we don't want the brothers or the sisters to reach a stage where now it's gone into schizophrenia or psychosis or whatever. What are the main things that we need to implement, do you think, just briefly?
See, the difficult thing as well when we're talking about especially drug-induced psychosis, for an example, is very, very difficult, because now we're dealing with an external factor which is adding towards the mental health. And when I say external factor, I mean things like smoking marijuana or cocaine or heroin or crystal meth. The minute you start sort of diving into that side of things now, of taking drugs on that side of things, it becomes really sticky, because now it's not about whether or not you can speak to someone or not. We're just now hoping for the best, that your brain doesn't crumble due to the drugs that you're taking. So it's very, very difficult in terms of how do we combat that issue regarding people who are taking drugs, which ultimately leads them into suffering with psychosis.
Okay, can you also obviously people say, oh, it's only weed. Like, it's only weed. How dangerous is weed these days in regards to health, in regards to dealing with mental health? Unfortunately, a lot of the Muslim community, they're involved, and oh yeah, it's only a bit of weed. It's cool, but from your experience in your cases, what's the situation with mental health and this connection to drugs?
Yeah, I remember when I was young, I used to say that to my mum. A lot of my family members are in the mental health field as well. I remember when I was young, I used to say that to my mum as well, and my mum used to, like, you know, say to me, "I don't know what I'm talking about," because I used to think the same thing, innit? I used to think, oh, it's just weed, innit? Like, it grows from the earth. It's like it's like pumpkin seeds and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? But it's only now that I realized that, you know, it's far from. And to make it worse, the weed that is around now is not the same what it was 20 years ago. So, for an example, a lot of it is being grown here, and they brought all kinds of stuff in it now. Whereas before, a lot of it was, you know, was imported. And where it was imported, it might have been imported from countries where it was grown better. And even then, that's not making an excuse, but it's just the reality, and it's the facts that depending on how it is that you're growing weed, it will now determine on how quick it can have that effect on the mind. But yeah, in terms of weed, it again, my caseload that I have, but as I said, 27 out of the 27, I say 20 is drug related.
That's
and
big.
out of those drugs, maybe about 15 of them is just on marijuana, just on weed. They're having a psychotic breakdown. So that just goes to show you how much weed is something that is quite detrimental to one's mental state.
Can that be reversed? Do the drugs have a detriment to the brain itself? And is it something that is reversible? Is it damage done or just an imbalance of chemicals?
It can be, and where I work in what they call early intervention, which is I'm not gonna lie, I really love this job. Early, it's like getting early and leave early. So
okay, got you.
So basically, these are people that are suffering with psychosis for the first time. So the idea is that the sooner you can get help, then the sooner you can then come off of medication and recover fully. So yeah, it can be reversed. It can be reversed. And but the thing is with me, and I know a lot of maybe professionals might not necessarily agree with me, and some do. I'm not really much of a medication type of person.
Okay.
I don't really do pharmaceutical drugs unless it's absolutely necessary. So the fact that we're in early intervention is good because they only tend to be on, if all goes well, they will only be on medication for like maybe a year. As long as they're not smoking anymore, they might be on medication for a year, and after that year, that's it, they're back to normal.
Okay, just obviously prevention is better than cure or early intervention. So for us in the community, if we see someone feeling depressed, if we see someone feeling depressed, or we see signs of mental health issues, how do we jump in earlier? What are the signs we can kind of look for in order to stop situation from escalating?
Again, it depends on the individual. There is like a sort of a common theme to a lot of the clients who are showing early signs of plug this in for me, sorry, who are showing like early signs of mental health, a breakdown or psychotic symptoms or anything like that. Some of them is lack of sleep. So you find out that they're not sleeping. Loss of appetite, isolating themselves, not really engaging with people, not attending to their personal hygiene. Basically, when you look at a person and you know that the way they used to be before, so someone was outgoing, if someone was quite talkative, someone who did look after their personal hygiene, and you start to see slowly that those things are now becoming less, then this is an indication that things are not right.
So early intervention for example, if it's a parent or a son, what would you say would be the first steps in trying to treat this yourself, rather than escape? Some practical kind of advice that you think we could do. I know it's a big ask.
Yeah, no, it is. Sometimes, again, it depends on the individual. It depends on things like money, even things like that. Do you have enough money to go away? Change the environment, the scenery, maybe go on holiday or something like that. So, sometimes that can
make
away. That can make a difference. Obviously, ultimately sitting down and speaking with the individual. If you feel that as a parent, you can't speak to your child because, sometimes parents go through that stage where, they're not able to really speak to their child. They're not really connecting. So reach out to one's friends, reach out to your daughter's friends or your son's friends. Again, this is why it's important for parents to know their child and know who their friends are and things like that, so that if you feel things are not right, you can reach out to their friends for them to come and speak to them, let them know what's going on, what you know. Yeah, those are sort of like the main sort of things that you can do. Just try to engage, try to change the scenery if possible, get others involved, get family involved, get friends involved, and see how it goes from there, really.
But you, no matter what, you can't have a hands-off approach, because sometimes, like, say, okay, fine, you deal with it. Sometimes it's like, well, okay, I've tried my best, I leave you to yourself, kind of thing.
I wouldn't advise that. Yeah, I wouldn't advise that. Just to say, I've tried, so I'm just gonna leave you to do what you're doing. At that point, if you feel like you've tried, and you've exhausted efforts in terms of trying to deal with it yourself, then definitely say, try and get services involved, try and help, so that whether that be going to see your GP, calling a crisis line, and just seeing whether or not you can get professionals to now come in and see how they can help.
Excellent. Okay, going back to the situation that, as I said, the majority of cases I've seen have led to them being now induced with drugs. Unfortunately, the individual's not taking their drugs. It's a very difficult subject. It's a very difficult issue to deal with. People have tried to deal with it. It's just like, only thing you do is call the people in the white coats. You know what I'm saying? And it's sad. It's so sad. What can we do in order to avoid that? I think I've kind of mentioned that to you already. But even to support someone who has gone into that situation and now is taking drugs, what is the percentage of coming out of that, when they're on medication and being 100% straight afterwards? Because it doesn't seem as if they can come out of that cycle of reliance on drugs, from what your cases that you've seen.
I mean, if you're in early intervention, then there's a real hope for you. And again, I'm not trying to sort of be a bit of a downer on it, but if you can get into early intervention, and then there's a lot of hope. Beyond that, I haven't really seen much joy when someone moves on from early intervention. So I used to work in Southwark early intervention, and you work with clients for up to 3 years. I'm now with Lambeth, and Lambeth you work with individuals for up to 2 years. But when that time is up, you move forward onto a longer supporting system. One is promoting recovery, and another one is called focus support. They're the same thing, but basically they work with people for a longer period of time, in regards to their mental health and medication and so forth. And I don't know, I could be wrong. I don't know what the actual statistics are, but when I did work in that sector, because I did do it for a little while, people tend to be there for a long time, because maybe they can't get off the drugs, they can't shift what it is that's really going on in their lives, hence why they need that constant support in regards to their mental health, which is specifically for psychosis specifically. So
what is psychosis, if you can give it a quick breakdown?
So I suppose psychosis would not, I would say in layman terms, it's not being in touch with reality.
Okay, someone's talking to me, kind of thing.
Yeah, not being in touch with reality. So it's not just it's whether you're seeing things that are not there, whether you're hearing things not there, or you have these delusional ideas. That would be someone suffering with psychosis.
Is psychosis brought on? Is it drug induced, or is it just an emotional imbalance, you could say? Like, for example, is it brought on by hallucinogenic drugs, or could be brought on by stress?
Both.
Okay.
Both, yeah, they come. Again, in my experience, a lot of it is mainly due to drug induced.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, but
Mm-hmm.
but again, I literally did an assessment the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and this person suffered with psychosis simply because he broke up with his girlfriend.
Wow.
Yeah, he broke up with his girlfriend, and he was with her for about 3 months, and because of the lockdown, um,
Mm.
they were together a lot during that three
Close.
months.
Mm.
Yeah, were a lot together during that 3 months, and he thought that they were really going somewhere where in
Oh
reality,
man.
yeah, she wasn't. It wasn't like that for her. She ended up breaking it off, and yeah, and then he literally suffered with
He broke down.
psychosis.
So we can see the benefits of only loving Allah to that degree.
Yeah,
Only Allah will always be with you.
exactly.
Partner may not be with you tomorrow. So just fear Allah, but serious. It's very serious.
Like, no, it's serious, man. It's serious. It is serious. Exams, as I said, the stress
Mm.
of exams has brought upon psychotic episode. Trauma. Trauma is another thing. So he might have been stabbed. Person who's been stabbed, he started suffering with psychosis because he was very paranoid, stayed in his house, uh,
Mm-hmm.
didn't come out, and then sooner or later you start to hear voices.
Mm.
So yeah, many different reasons as to what brings on a psychotic episode.
Mm. I don't want to categorize it as weakness. Like
Mm,
there's strong you've got a strong mentality, like, you're invincible, you're hard. I'm,
mm,
I'm a hard man. I don't cry, I don't break. I'm
mm.
invincible.
Yeah,
Is that I'll say is that foolishness, but is that like but being hard emotionally, does that make sense? Like someone could say, "Child, if I fail my exam, who cares?" But this man is stressed over exam to the point where I had a mental breakdown. Would someone say mentally he's weak? Do you get what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I get you, and I suppose there are benefits in regards to being hard. I suppose, and having that mentality of it is what it is kind of thing. Not necessarily
mm,
saying, "Oh, I don't care," because then
mm,
are you gonna try your best in
mm,
other situations? But at the same
mm.
time, having the attitude of it is what it is, I think that's what helps one person to be sane. Because if you
Yes.
are someone who stresses a lot about, an exam or a breakup or
Mm,
divorce or
mm.
anything like that, then
Or,
yeah,
or life in general, the dunya in general,
or life in general, exactly, in
nothing
general.
stays the same. Everything is
Yeah.
moving, everything is changing. You can't
Um,
rely on any piece of the dunya
no.
like
Or
it's
even,
always.
or even likewise, the akhirah, you know,
Yes.
constantly thinking, I'm gonna go Jahannam, or
Yeah.
things like that. It will take your mind, it will take your mind. So it's about being balanced.
Mm,
It's
mm,
about
mm,
being
mm.
balanced. And there's a saying that I have for people, whether it's Muslims or non-Muslims. It's more non-Muslims that I say the saying to, but I say to them that if you have a situation
Mhm,
and you know that you can fix it, then why worry? And if you have a situation and you know you can't fix it, then why
mhm,
worry?
mm, mm.
And it sounds cliche, it sounds simple, but that's something that I even before Islam, this is what kind of helps me to be, calm in situations. Because for me, if I know that something has happened and I know that I can fix it, whether it's a month later, tomorrow, or whatever, then at that time, it's important for me not to worry. And if
Mm,
I've got a situation and I know that I can't fix it, then I might as well get over it. I can't fix it, so there's no point
mm,
in worrying. So
mm,
this saying that I always try to get people to try and apply in their lives, and hopefully it will,
mm. I mean,
it won't
now
worry.
with the COVID lockdown, people are facing financial stress. People not working. People not being able to go out get fresh air.
Yeah,
People not being able to visit people. Um, a lot of people are going to get stressed, and it's important for the Muslims to be prepared, to look out for each other, visit each other, make sure people are okay financially, because it could, as you said, escalate into something really, really bad.
Yeah.
Someone sent a question: is there a prominent reason why young people start smoking? I've got a question from a brother. It says, is there a predominant reason why young people start smoking weed? Are there any prominent social factors that stand out?
Yeah, society, isn't it? Society. When you look around now,
Mm,
we're living in a time now where what is good is bad, and what is bad is good.
mm,
You know, that's the era that we're living in now.
mm-hmm,
And unfortunately, films, the music,
mm-hmm,
uh, adverts, billboards, all of these things is what is encouraging a lot of the youth, even
mm,
even in our Muslim communities.
mm,
Uh, and unfortunately, this issue of smoking weed is it's seen to be cool and
mm,
downplayed and things like this, and
mm-hmm,
unfortunately it's affecting our youth,
mm.
unfortunately.
Do you have like a percentage of Muslims, or do you know it's a high, low percentage in mental health institutions? Do you know if there's any figures for that?
um no, I don't know specifically in terms of the percentages, but there are quite a few. There
Mm,
are quite a few. I would say, again, I can only talk about my own caseload.
mm-hmm,
Out of the 27, there is about one, two, three, about four Muslims
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That you've dealt with specifically.
that are my clients.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that
Mm,
are my clients. There's about three or four Muslim. One was discharged yesterday. Uh,
okay.
he was discharged. He's doing quite well. He's
Mm-hmm,
taking medication. Doesn't really need our service anymore. So
mm-hmm,
he's discharged from our team.
mm-hmm,
But in terms of other people's caseloads, yeah, there's for me, I feel like it's quite high percentage of the amount of Muslims that are within our team,
mm, mm,
and that's just
mm,
Lambeth. That's just Lambeth. Yet along where I used to work in Southwark,
mm-hmm.
again, quite a lot, and surprisingly enough, a lot of females.
Okay.
A
Any
lot.
any any links to reason why? Any
I'm I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And surprisingly enough, as well, there's quite a few within the Somalian community.
Mm,
Again,
mm,
I'm not sure as to why that is, but yeah, that's another factor that I've kind of
mm,
clocked.
mm, mm. I think one of the issues, as you said at the beginning, at the early stages, to be able to speak to the individual. So the family structure is very important. So individuals have support, have role models, have someone they can go to and speak. And if they have anxiety or stress, they can
Mm,
go there and let out their emotions. You get what I'm saying? If you
mm,
don't have that pressure release, or someone that you can talk to, then obviously that could then further go down the line. So how would you emphasize that? Okay, so if you're treating an individual now and he's just let open into the world, like he lives by himself
mm.
and he hasn't got support, but then someone leaves your institution and goes to a home. Do you think there's any difference in the likeness of his recovery?
So when you say home, as in his own home, or you mean?
One individual goes back to a family home and another
Yeah.
individual goes to a bedsit by himself. Like
Oh yeah.
I can just probably see that there's going to be a big
Oh yeah,
uh
yeah, definitely. But at the same time, and I wanted to mention this before,
mm,
sometimes families they don't help.
okay.
Yeah, sometimes families they don't help. Um, because maybe their lack of knowledge, or the lack of education in regards to mental health,
Mm,
it doesn't help,
mm,
so yes, the individual might have someone to talk to, but
mm-hmm.
is the right person who you're talking to? Are they just fobbing you off? Are they just downplaying
Yes.
what your mental health is? So in that case, them going back home would be the wrong place to go to.
I'm saying maybe the home is the pressure pot.
Pressure
You go,
pot in
you
the
go in the
forehead.
door and it's just bare pressure to conform, to do this, not to
Nah,
do that, and
nah.
it's not.
So I had a client, not my particular client, but someone who he actually called me up, asking me some advice about a Muslim girl who
Mm,
the family wanted to take her up north somewhere to
mm,
do ruqya.
okay.
And the ruqya was apparently 10 people were going to pray over some water and do this and do that, and they were asking me, do you know if this is part of the Islamic faith? And I was like, well, ruqya is, but the way they're doing it, I've
No.
never heard of that before,
Mm,
but in her case, it wasn't a case of jinn.
yes.
It wasn't a case of jinn. um
Mm,
they were treating it as if it was jinn, you know and so these are the small things that sometimes, again, it can be a bit of a problem,
okay.
within.
That's a big door you open up now, because we're gonna know how do we tell, and we need help on that, because that's kind of the first thing we jump to. There's one thing using the Quran as shifa. Okay, you read ayats over people.
Mm.
Um, but as for now, we're going to use ruqya um, for something which is a mental illness. How can we differentiate? Um, can you shed some light on it?
Do you know what? Yeah, I said this before about. Um, I don't know what it is. This is something that I've experienced in the past anyway. That when it
Mm,
comes to ruqya, people are very funny in addressing it, as in those people who are qualified
mhm,
in giving ruqya to an individual. I think it's very important for them to be involved within the mental health field,
mhm,
because what
mhm.
they're able to do is hopefully they are able to distinguish, to say this isn't a case of jinn, for an
Yes.
example, which
Mhm,
would then allow the mental health services to deal with it as a mental health problem.
mhm,
You
mm,
get what I'm trying to
mm,
say?
mm,
Rather than, again, this is something that happened when I was a student, actually working in tutoring. I was on a work placement, and there was a young um, Muslim brother who they thought it was a mental health problem, but they were confused. The consultants were confused. They were like, "We don't know what this is."
yes.
I knew what it was. I knew it was jinn straight away when I when I saw it.
You saw the individual, or you read the case file, or what?
No, no, no. I used to work with him, so I was a student working in Springfield, and
Okay.
he came from Cameroon or somewhere. He came from Cameroon, and
Yes.
yeah, he used to growl a lot. He was fine one moment, then the next
Yes.
minute start growling. He would start. It was just shaitan. He would start shouting up my name, Ismail, Ismail. Like it was quite scary at the time, you
Yes.
know. And and the consultants were totally confused as to what was this. They couldn't see it being schizophrenia or nothing of the sort. So I said to them, look, let me take him to a local mosque. In fact, I brought him to Brixton, actually.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and let's just
They
see.
gave you permission. The hospital said,
I was really surprised. I was really surprised. They gave me permission. See, the thing is that these hospitals, they will promote spirituality. They will
mm,
say that, oh, it's important that we attend to people's spirituality and so forth, so forth. So I thought, let me test them in it. So I said to
mm,
them, oh, he's a Muslim, I'm a Muslim. Let me take him to a local mosque, and let's see what the imam has to say and so forth, so forth.
mhm.
And yeah, and I brought him to Brixton, and I think, I'm not sure if they did Rukia, but they did kind of like assess him at the time and
Mhm,
speak to him and so forth, so forth. And I think they kind of confirmed that it was Jin.
mhm,
Um, Long story short, he ended up going back. I think it was to Cameroon. I'm pretty sure it was Cameroon,
mhm,
where he continued doing the Rukia,
mhm.
and he became better. Alhamdulillah. He called me from Cameroon to say,
MashaAllah.
Zaklake, thank you for helping me,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
forth,
yeah.
and that he was better, mashallah.
Mm,
So
mm,
so yeah, so for me, I think it's very, very important that those who are qualified within that field work, with people like myself, who I'm not qualified in that field,
mhm, mhm.
but mental health I am. So if we can work together, then there could be a lot of cases that we can sort of, clear cut, that we don't have people in hospital because of
Yes.
that gin. They're treating it as mental health.
Mm. And also remember, obviously, people are making money out of this Rukia thing, and unfortunately, so they could be taking advantage of the individual when really
No,
it's a medical issue.
no, no.
Um, we have our brother, our Sheikh, my co-host Ismail Fraser here. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I'm really, really sorry for being so late.
No problem, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, I was asleep. I got this portable bed in my father, and I just tested it out for 20 minutes. My father came in and said next time I heard you was snoring. So I'm rested though. I'll tell you what, if you want good mental health, make sure you sleep well at night time.
Mashallah, mashallah. Okay, we have a question from Abu Sulaiman in regards to the types of mental illnesses, those that are permanent and those that are temporary. So can you give us a division, or can you kind of clarify those illnesses that are permanent and those that are temporary?
Again, that's quite hard for me to say which ones are permanent. Because someone suffering with psychosis, I think with the right treatment, you can be cured from that with the right treatment. One would say that if you've got schizophrenia, you've got schizophrenia for life. One would say, suffering with bipolar, you've got bipolar for life. But I don't know. I'm a bit skeptical with those kind of things because I'm a bit of a holistic person.
Yes.
I don't really do pharmaceutical drugs unless I kind of have to. I do a lot of herbal remedies and so forth. And I do personally believe that there is a cure for all illnesses, including mental health. It's just about going about it the right way. So,
I mean, the issue of when an individual is on drugs and he decides to stop it, and I've seen, unfortunately, what happens. So once someone starts a course of drugs, he has to stick to it. There's no way of them getting off those drugs, or he's got to come with it slowly. Because give us some insight into once you're on medication, the importance of taking it and sticking to the right dosage. Otherwise, it doesn't end well.
Yeah. So in terms of medication wise, I think it's important to know that when you do start medication, number one, don't ever just stop like straight away, as in you just literally stop taking it. You always have to wean yourself off. You always have to slowly come off medication, and ideally, they do say that when you first have an episode, a psychotic episode specifically, when you start medication, they say that the first year to a year and a half is the most sort of vulnerable time as to when it is you could have another relapse. So they always encourage you to continue taking that medication consistently for about a year to a year and a half, and then you start to slowly decrease and then come off. But again, it's all depend on external factors such as drugs, for an example, where you taking any recreational drugs. Are you still taking them? If so, then you taking that medication is going to take even longer, basically.
Okay.
But in general, they say about a year and a half, and then slowly start to wean yourself off.
So once you start those drugs, then you're on a long process of getting off them. So the importance should be emphasized that there has to be, I'll say, early intervention
to
stop the person from getting to that stage. Because once you get to that stage where now you're on drugs, it's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. Yeah, there are some cases where it's only 6 months. There are some cases where it's only 3 months, simply because they're very strict in not taking drugs anymore, smoking any weed or sniffing cocaine or smoking crack or anything like that. They're very, very strict. So therefore, they only needed to take their medication, detox off of the the recreational drugs, and they're fine. They're back to normal. Those are some of the cases that I have seen, but in general, I would say maybe about a year that you stay on medication for.
Just I'm going to ask anyone who's on the chat, if you have any questions, please either put your hands up or you can type it here. We'll start taking questions in that. One second. Oh, so how would you? We were talking about self-treatment now. We understand early prevention is better. We all have different stresses and strains in our house. How would you advise us to protect ourselves from falling into mental health issues, like the mindset or the we're talking about putting up a defense barrier against suffering from stress, how to offload worries. What advice can you give us on that to remain mentally strong?
Believe it or not, eating and drinking well is very important. Very, very, very important. A lot of people they underestimate about the importance of eating well and drinking well, because what affects your body affects the mind, and what affects your mind affects the body. So this is something that's very important, that you are eating well.
Well, meaning good foods, or there's certain ingredients we should stay away from, sugar or whatever.
Yeah, good. No, yeah, definitely. I mean, just eating well. Try not to eat too much meat. Try not to have too much sugars. Salt. All of these things. It does affect the brain. So this is something very, very important to try and eat well. And again, networking. I think networking is key. Especially during these times. If you're not somebody who has a wife at home, a husband at home, it's just you, then it's very, very important for you to connect with other
social people. To try and have a social network.
I mean, Zoom meetings, for an example, it's not, sisters can set up Zoom meetings and literally, just meet up there and have tea and so forth. Likewise with the brothers. I think some weeks ago, a brother set up a Zoom meeting, and we did a quiz. We did a quiz on Quran and Sunnah. It's something I've never done before, but it was
jokes. You had a laugh, and
jokes. We had a proper laugh. So these are the sort of things that I would encourage our brothers and sisters to do. And likewise, as you said, just as we've mentioned before, just checking up on each other. I think that's very, very important.
Excellent. I'm gonna bring in Ismail Fraser. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Fadal, can you shed some light on this issue? I mean, one of the important things that we've come to the conclusion is obviously prevention is better than cure. And as brother just mentioned about having the social network, keeping people socializing and talking, and being able to offload their stress onto someone else, and the ability to say, you know what, bruv, I've got an issue, man. Can you help me out? What is the importance of actually, establishing that community so that we can actually do that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say Jazakallah khair to Brother Ismail. Welcome. And where have you been? Where have you been all our lives, bro? Where have you been? We got you on here. We're never gonna let you go, bro. Jazakallah khairan. But yeah, and I say that and I mean that because when I first took my shahada, what was clear is that we had people within our community with mental illnesses from day dot. I took my shahada in a community where there were people with illnesses, and on depressants, and they used to sometimes they used to get ill, and they used to blow up like a balloon, and we had it affected quite a few of the sisters. And I think we're not being sexist here. I'm saying that brothers don't get ill, but there's quite a few women folk that get ill as well. And I would say the number one reason why people get ill, male or female, is they either have some chemical imbalance in their body in the first place, which their diet and their habits that if they're taking any drugs, if they're not sleeping, they're stressed out, if they're feeling alone or anything like this, you might find that these people are very kind of soft and easy. They're not very assertive. They're very mild people. And if they're left alone, then they can become very ill very quickly. We used to ask a question, and I still ask the question today when I'm assessing people, and I'm nowhere not nurse, I'm not as qualified as yourself, but I've got this experience. Is someone mad, or are they bad? Right. When I say is someone mad, well, we're all kind of mad in a way. If you say if you're not eating and drinking, and if we're taking some form of intoxicants, and if you're not sleeping properly, you could go mad. You might be perfectly well healthy. You might be born healthy. Yeah, but once the chemical imbalances in your body changes, you can quickly become ill. Okay. And or is it that if someone was to you see someone in a community behaving a bit out of the way, and if you was to take them to the doctor and take their blood, urine, feces test, get some kind of liquid from their brain and test their brain, are there chemicals missing from their brain? Now, if the chemicals missing from their brain, then that means that they're naturally mad. They need those chemicals of some sort. They need chemicals, preferably natural balances to balance them out so they can behave like normal, or they need something synthetic that they need to get their brain performing natural so they can behave naturally. I don't know, these pharmaceutical drugs, you take them and then there's some side effects. So you take a chemical, some pharmaceutical medication to solve one problem, and the side effects give you about 3 or 4 different problems. You know what I mean? Sometimes just taking those drugs, you never get better. You just become addicted, and it produces chemicals in the brain that take over from the natural chemicals that should be produced in your body. You need, if there's some chemical imbalance, you need to be taking some foodstuffs that helps your organs, that helps your body to produce those things naturally. When you go onto the pharmaceutical medication, what happens is that it actually stops your organs, your parts of your brains and part of your body from producing the natural drugs that you need inside your body naturally, and it blocks them out. So now you become dependent. So pharmaceutical world, a cured patient is a lost customer. So everything is there's very, very rare that you can take something that will cure you entirely. And another thing, as Brother Ismail said, Brother Ismail says that a lot of people who are unwell, who are on medication, they're also doubling doubling up on smoking skunk and taking other stuff. I mean, you know, would you believe it? There's worse intoxicants than skunk cannabis. Terrible. I mean, I just don't know how people could put that stuff to their mouth. You know, it smells so bad. I mean, Allah knows what it's doing to someone's brain, and then they're taking stuff that is harder than that. That's unthinkable. But yeah, there are people who are doubling up on the medication that they're taking with these other narcotics. You see, so let me just divide again the type of mad. When I say mad, I'm talking about a level of sickness. Okay, there's some people who are naturally sick because they've got certain chemicals that are missing from the brain, and there's some people who are just overcome by the pressures in society, by self-doubt, by the lack of ability, and the whole system is getting to them, and then they start taking these narcotics, and then now they become really mad. They didn't start off that way, but they become really mad. And there's some people who naturally they have these things missing. Then the other type of people are people who are bad. There's nothing wrong with these people. Nothing wrong. If you go to take them to the hospital and you test them for the chemical imbalances in their brain, you don't see no chemical imbalances in their brain. They're not chemically brain deficient. You know, they're not deficient at all. But these guys and girls are just bad. When I say they're bad, they don't pray. They don't pray. They're supposed to be inside at home, or they're supposed to be in the mosque, or they're supposed to be with the Muslims, and they're not at home. They're in other people's homes. They're in the club. They're in this place. They're in that place. They're not making the salah. They're not in the masajid. They're not listening to Quran. They're listening to music. They're not. You understand? They're doing some bad stuff, and then as a result, as Brother Ismail said, they get possessed by the jinn, and then now they become mad.
Ismail, we were just discussing that issue about jinn possession and all this kind of stuff. The fact that it's not easy to differentiate whether it's i.e. the first thing that the Muslim community does as soon as we think someone does have a mental issue or an issue, we take them to the Ruqya place first of all, when really intervention may be better from a mental health doctor. So I think mentally Muslims have to, should we assume, I'm going to go back to Ismail, should we assume that first of all it is a mental health issue, and then later on the doctor will say, well, okay, no, it's more than that. Like practically, when should the Muslim intervene then, if you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think it's important for them before you go to any doctor. I think should be looked at within the community first. The reality is, doctors 9 times out of 10 they don't believe in the spiritual world. Even though they try to promote it and they say, yeah, you know, we take this into consideration, but the reality is they don't believe in that. So for you to go to the doctors first, they're always going to treat it as a mental health problem, irrespective as to whether or not it's a spiritual problem or not. So I think it's important that if you can address the situation within the community, and then whoever is qualified into identifying whether it's jinn or not, at least if we can get that clear from the community, then we know, okay, it's not a jinn issue. We've got clarification from someone who's qualified. Now we can now take it to the next step, which is, you know, seeking help via mental health services.
Excellent.
But also what I wanted to say as well is that a lot of the time you will see a timeline. You will see a person's background. If you're able to sit down with an individual, this is what we have to do, especially during our assessments. We talk about people's childhood. We talk about what they've been through, what they're currently going through, any trauma that they've been through, and you're able to kind of tell from that background and from that information that okay, we are dealing with a mental health problem. The example that I gave to you about the Muslim sister whose family were taking her up north to go and do ruqya, bro.
Yes.
If you look at her history, someone who was raped by a family member,
No way.
he was kicked out of home, someone who had an abortion, so many, and it's not as if to say the family don't know this. The family know that this is what sister has been through. So why would you not think that this is a mental health problem? Why would you assume that this is jinn when you can see that the trauma she's been through growing up, forced into marriage, all of these things, you can clearly see that this is a mental health problem rather than it being jinn,
Yeah, definitely. I think we got a contribution from Abu Sulaiman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Fadl, you wanted to contribute something? Fadl.
Yeah, no, just saying, Jazakallah khair for brother Brian, I don't know his Islamic name, but
Ismail his names.
Oh, smiles. So the 3 smiles, mashallah, 3 in a row.
MashaAllah.
No, I'm just saying, what you've discussed, if you look at it from the Islamic perspective, from what I see, inshallah, Allah knows best, is that the whole issue comes back to our belief in Allah and the Akhirah, and how strong our faith is in relation to obeying and following the guidance of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to avoid all of these mental issues that the brothers are talking about. Within the Muslim community, because I would say less community cohesion, or there's no interaction between the community as a whole, we find many of our brothers and sisters have gone the way they've gone, because not that there are no people, but because Shaitan has made many things easy for them to do. Whereas if they were given firm guidance and firm rooted principles of Islam that they need to adhere to, hopefully you would have avoided them going in those directions. Like many of the brothers have said, there are certain people who will be born in a way that they will be mentally from birth, that we can't do anything about it. But there are others who have been affected mentally because the waswas of shaitan, the whispers of shaitan, are too great for them to comprehend. And this is why you will find, like many of our scholars, like Shaykh Uthaymeen Rahimullah has mentioned, that people are far away from the teaching of the religion, that you will find many people affected mentally. The more they are closer to the religion, then you will find that they are less affected mentally, but they will be affected by the attachment of jinns or magic or evil eye, many other things that you will find that many of the non-Muslim doctors will not believe in, because many of our effects that we find within our community is because of evil eye. For example, Brother Ismail, mashallah, graduating, being a nurse, being a practitioner of mental health, some people may feel in the heart, why did he become the way he became? But instead of saying, mashallah, may Allah bless him, may Allah, increase him, and may benefit the community. But the evil eye takes over, hasad, envy comes into play. So it is very important that we need to understand Islamically, sometimes the mental health is because of how we are viewing our brothers and our sisters. And sometimes you may find a mashallah, a very handsome brother or a beautiful sister, she's fine. But because of many people are using Facebook, they're exposing themselves, showing themselves off, you find they become all crazy and not overnight. Why? Because some people have given evil eye. So for example, you may be just selling your food business, but mashallah, you're making nice food, all of that stuff that you're for your business. But some people may look at it like, wow, look at that. And next thing you know, the sister or the brother is not able to produce the same good quality of food he used to, because somebody has given him the evil eye. So it is very important that we need to protect ourselves. Like our Prophet ﷺ said, protect yourself from fitna which is apparent and which is hidden. The problem is there are trials and tribulation that will come and affect us, whether it be ourselves, whether it be our family, whether it be our community. It will affect all of us. If we find, for example, today in our time, many of our Muslim brothers and sisters, they go after our own brothers because he doesn't take the same position as me, or like he doesn't take the same stance on an issue like me. The Prophet ﷺ said, do not seek at the faults of your brother. If you do, you will destroy him. How many Muslims have left the religion or gone back to the previous lifestyle because people are seeking a particular stance, or they're seeking a particular view from the brother, when he himself may be practicing the basics of Islam, which is sufficient for him to at least be firm. But because of constant pestering, constant bickering, constant inquiring, what's your view? What do you say about this? What do you say about that? It's like, why the hell did I come to Islam for? For these people to keep on barraging me with these questions, I'll leave him. So again, this is very important for us to look at holistically, inshallah, that our community, our leaders, our imams, our masajid, they have to play a part in making clear the issues of mental issues, and how to solve it is to go back to the book and the sunnah and do the adhkar, the remembrance of the Prophet ﷺ that we need to do, inshallah.
MashaAllah.
Jazakallah khairan. Very good. That's very good. Very, very good point. Very, very good contribution. Allah Mubarak alaik. I mean, yeah, the evil eye, man, is very, 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 very serious. People do become ill. It's really, really, really strange that someone might be well, and then the moment they put themselves into the limelight, it's very, very rare. In a short space. Well, I won't say, but what's relative when we say short space? But in 40 years, the what I've seen in 40 years, the people who really do put themselves up on a pulpit and put themselves up in the limelight, soon or later it becomes ill. That's what I've seen. I don't know if and there's brothers who's been around for 30 years. Brothers who've been around for 20 years, and you can see that what brother Abu Ilyas what brother Ilyas has said is it's spot on. I don't know, Ismail, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts about that, about the mental health issue, and what brother Ilyas was saying about the evil eye? What's your experience?
To be fair, I haven't really had much, because since I've been a mental health nurse, and brothers and sisters have known about my profession over the years, I do get phone calls, asking for advice. They give me a bit of background as to what it is that their loved one may be going through. Evil eye is not something I can say I've come across a lot in regards to what people have said. I think actually I heard about evil eye just today, actually. But again, it wasn't really affecting their mental state in that way. So it isn't something that I've really come across, but at the same time, it's very real. This is something that as Muslims we shouldn't downplay. But one of the points I did wanted to mention of what the brother just said is that sometimes we have to think realistically, in the sense that, yes, and I think this was one of the first things that me and Ismail said before, about the first thing in terms of the cure, the first thing in terms of the prevention is to adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah. You can't go wrong, if we go down this path. But the reality is that some of us, our iman, it goes up and down. You know, some people's iman is high and some is low. And this is why it all comes back down to the community. You know, it all comes back down to how do we look out for one another. If someone's iman is low, then that person may need us or will need us to help them to increase in their iman. And when we don't look after our brothers and look after our sisters, then this is where now the person now spirals down into this depression or spirals down into having a breakdown. So as much as you're saying, I agree 100% that the Quran and the Sunnah is the way, is the prevention and is the cure. Unfortunately, for some of our brothers and sisters, they don't have that level of iman in order for them to be in that safe zone. And I speak for myself first and foremost. I speak for myself that there are times where my iman may be low and I could be a victim to mental health. But it's important that I have a brotherhood around me, and it's important that I have, you know, my family also who are able to support me and help me, you know. Unfortunately, there are many brothers and sisters who are out there, and unfortunately they don't have that support for one reason or another.
I think, sorry if I just may say, regarding what you just mentioned, the problem is the only way the community will know where this brother is, whether he's affected or not, whether this brother is good or bad, whether he's well or not, is the only way we know is they start by going to the masjid. For the men, it is an obligation that if the masjid is open, we go to the mosque and pray. And once we see our brother is not there, he's not attending, then we will know there's something wrong. And this is why we find that the community, when the Prophet ﷺ said that the best prayer for the man is to pray in the masjid, and the best prayer for the woman is to pray at home. Now, when you're in the masjid, you know your brother, we know how you are, we'll know whether you're feeling good or bad. But when you're not attending the house of Allah, automatically we should be asking, where is this brother Ismail? Where is this brother such and such? Why aren't we seeing him in the mosque? Because this will make us inquire as to where he is. But when you're not attending the mosque, when you're not in the masjid, when all the masjid are closed due to the COVID, etc., it is very important and very, very serious on our part. I would say that we need to establish this kind of Zoom gathering to get these brothers to come and talk and just make themselves feel that they are part of the community that they used to be in, maybe in the past. I may have let them down now, but we need to get back into that mode, inshallah.
I mean, I would just, it seems that one of the most important things is the family structure and being there to support individuals, because everyone goes through stress, everyone's iman goes up and down. And I think in the future, we need to have a serious discussion about the role of the family structure, its importance, supporting the family, so that, because everyone has emotions, everyone has ups and downs, and I think having a strong family structure is a way of protecting oneself from mental health issues. Okay, we've been here for over an hour, and we have to summarize. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to call you Dr. Ismail to give us a, what am I looking for? A summary. Okay, mental health issues are on the rise. Okay, what advice can you give us in regards to how we can protect ourselves throughout these stages? On the onset of a mental health issue, how it should be treated, and then follow it down the line that if it does escalate, someone should make a phone call, someone should admit themselves and say, yeah, I've got an issue. Or from a point of, okay, a mother's got to, or a father's got to call the hospital, say, okay, my son's got some issues, can you come and get him? If you can just kind of give us a summary and break it down for us, kind of every step. I know it's a bit long, but
Yeah, now
you've got to summarize. Yeah,
I would say, as I said before, first and foremost, prevention is better than cure. And even the cure itself is always referring back to the Book of Allah and our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in terms of the Sunnah. networking, communicating, speaking with your loved ones, and speaking with those who you can connect with, I think is very important. Because, your mother and your father, and they are your loved ones, but you may not necessarily see eye to eye. You may not necessarily feel that they can understand where you're coming from. So, it's very important for you to try and reach out to someone who understands you. I think it's very, very important. Do not feel like you're on your own, because you're not on your own. And I think it's very, very important that you do not treat a situation of feeling stress, or in terms of mental health problems, that you're on your own, because you're not on your own. So try and reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your Muslim community. Saying that as well, very, very soon, we will have a link where the Muslims will be able to make a phone call to myself, as well as hopefully trying to get a team together, just so that we can help whichever way we can help, and direct you also to sort of professional services that you can get support from. Again, you can do things like reaching out to the crisis line. You can always see your GP and let your GP know what's going on. But I warn you, do not be quick to accept any antidepressants or anything like that straight away. It's just a case of you going to your GP for them to refer you to other services, such as talking therapy. There's a support network called Talking Therapies, where you're able to be referred, where you're able to speak with someone, and just offload. Because for some people, speaking to someone who is a stranger, should I say, someone who you don't necessarily know, so you don't feel judged, sometimes that can help for an individual. So there are services that are out there that are like that one can access. Again, try to eat well, try to drink well, exercise, very, very important. Exercising. Again, these are some of the things that are quite very, very frustrating. And I'm sorry to just go back a little bit, but I thought
no problem.
This is very important for me to say. Our women are key, are very, very key. Our mothers, our sisters, our wives, our daughters are very, very key when it comes to talking about this situation. Things like them being able to go and exercise is a struggle, because there are no gyms for our sisters for them to attend. I know during this period now, during lockdown, all gyms are closed anyway, but just in the future, these are the sort of things that we need to be thinking about for our sisters, because exercising, it does wonders for one's mental health. As in literally, it will release certain chemicals within the brain that helps one to avoid things like depression and psychotic symptoms. So these are the sort of things that we need to be looking out for.
They think need to be established. Basically, they should be just normal services. Yeah,
this should be a standard thing within. And from my understanding, in terms of South London, we don't have anything like that within South London. Something that's dedicated to our sisters, for them to go, gym and work out and do their thing, because maybe at home it's difficult, And another thing is as well, because they are the ones who look after our children, and this is no attack to my brothers, but we do need to step up our game when it comes to our wives, or even our ex-wives who have our children. And we need to step up our game in terms of looking after our children and taking the children away from them, so that they can have time for themselves. Because again, these are regular reports that I get, that sisters are constantly struggling because they have 3-4 kids, or even one is enough, and they're not getting enough help from the husband, or even from the ex-husband. They're not getting any help whatsoever. And again, this is only going to add towards things like depression and stress. And from depression can come a psychotic breakdown. And I'm pretty sure no husband or ex-husband would like to see the mother of their children to experience a psychotic breakdown. So so again, going back to the whole family structure, this is something that's very, very, very key.
Excellent, excellent. So those are the preventative issues, and I think obviously, I think in the future we definitely have to talk about the family structure. Now, someone falls through that network, and now it's a case of, okay, they need medication, or they're referred to a hospital. How can we now support that individual if it's a family member? They want medication. What's the best way we can support this person?
Okay, so if somebody has gone into hospital, it's because there's a big jump that has happened. So when someone is in the community and things are not going right, and you know they've reached out to family or they've reached out to friends and so forth, they can now reach out to community services. That's where I work. You reach out to community services, so you're not in hospital yet. So you can be referred. You can self-refer. Your GP can refer. And I think there is another organization called Single Point of Access, SPA. They can also refer. So my advice is to definitely go through that route of via the community, where you can access community mental health services. This way, you're still at home, you're still doing your day-to-day things, but you've just got that extra support from a mental health service within the community, where you'd be assigned a care coordinator such as myself, or a female being a sister, and this way it can go in hospital.
I kind of get from you that don't go down the route of medication. Like you're saying, go to your community, go to someone who you know, go to your family, but avoid the medication at all costs. Like try to avoid, go to every single different route or avenue before you have to go and get, medication. Is that what you're trying to get across?
Yes and no, because as I said to you, medication is something that if it's something that is needed, then I'll be the first one to promote it. But again, that's if it is really needed. Trying to reach
But do you
out.
say, is there an oversubscription of drugs, do you think, in your field? Is it make it easier? Okay, give him a dose and it's fine.
Yeah, I think it is, especially within the GP services. Especially with GP services. I will say that in my community team, we're quite good, because if you're not sectioned, you're not forced to do anything. You don't have to, you don't have to take medication, you don't have to do psychology, you don't have to do any of that. When you're put on a section, then your rights are taken away.
Okay.
So you're forced to take medication. But by then, you're either a danger to yourself, a danger to others, you're at risk of severe self-neglect. So that's why a person would be sectioned in general. But the point I'm making is that if you can come to a community team, then we can work together where you don't necessarily have to be on medication. You can still access other services such as psychology, such as family intervention. You can have a vocational worker who can help you to look for courses if you want to do courses. We have an employment officer who can help you with employment. So we work with an individual holistically. Yes, we may encourage you to try and take medication, but as I said, you're not forced to take medication working with the community team. This is something that I would advise you in terms of taking these steps, because what you don't want is to end up not taking these steps and then you end up going into hospital.
Yes.
Because 8 times out of 10, the experience of being in hospital is not a good experience. So I strongly advise my brothers and sisters that they take the steps of reaching out to people, go into your local masjid. When we have the link in order to contact myself or anyone else that would be from the team, contact us. Go through to community mental health services, because the power is still with you.
Gotcha.
The power is still with you when you're with mental health services. After that, then that's when we're now looking into a hospital admission. But that's something that we would definitely want to avoid at all costs.
Excellent, mashallah, jazakallah khairan. I think that's very, very clear. So as soon as you get set up and you have your number and your contact, obviously in such a time will be there supporting you. And hopefully we can work with you with that. Does anyone have any questions? Ismail, Fraser, before we end this Zoom discussion, would you like to add anything?
What I would like to add is that before we end this Zoom discussion, we really need to be having a resolution where we can have an additional Zoom meeting where we can have this open discussion about communities' problems, about problems that any of us are experiencing. And we could come and we can offload and we can contribute and we can feel a part of. Because the problem is domestic violence and abuse is up. No doubt, you know, back in my day, I remember my mum calling my bigger brother to have me come inside because it's 9 o'clock, it's summertime, and we're out playing football, and I could hear my mum, you know, come inside, and I say, well, it's, you know, the sun is still in the sky, you know, it's still daytime, say, but it's 9 o'clock, you know, you got to come inside, it's time to go to bed, you know what I mean? But now you find more children, you have to be literally pulling them to take them outside, to take them outside to play, and especially in winter time. And now you've got the lockdown. So now you've got kids, children on top of children. You got the husband, he didn't really understand really the rights of the wife and the social, mental, psychological rights of the wife. To be loved, to be understood. And the wife, she didn't understand the needs, the comfort, and the sort of support, and the sort of different language that the husband has and uses and would like to be communicated, and vice versa. And the husband didn't understand either. And you got 4 or 5 people in a room, and they're all on their devices. Each person's got a device in their hand. Some's got a tab, some's got a pad, some's got, you know, Samsung, some's got iPhone, some's on the Xbox. You see what I'm saying? Everybody, you know,
in their own world.
Everyone in their own world, whatever that world is feeding out to them. And I've seen people on the device, and then they're not praying. I've gone to a service station, I'm making wudu for the salah. It's Salatul Fajr. And a man comes in and he says to me, Salaam alaikum. I say, Wa alaikum salam. I said, are you going to make wudu? Are you going to make the salah? He says nothing. No. I said, are you going to make wudu? He says nothing. I said to him, are you going to make the prayer? He says, no. And then he walks off. Chances are this brother, I don't know him from Adam's, but I don't know this brother. Right? Chances are this brother is spending time on his phone. He's spending his time on his devices, and he's far away from the deen. He's got family, and they're far away because they're on their devices, watching stuff and getting into stuff. You see, so it's really, really, really a problem. I think we need a separate, additional, Insight to Islam needs a separate day where people could just come in and get the advice and get the support. People like Ismail, people like yourself, people like Abu Suleiman, Brother Elias, Brother Hamdi, and other brothers, and just get that support. Just the advice and the instructions and the guide and the support and the listening to and the offloading, just the day-to-day problematic issues that people are facing on a daily basis, and get that. And people still entering this chat group now, because what's happening is that some members of our audience, they're listening, and what they're doing, they're passing on the Zoom link onto people who they feel needs to listen to this. And since I've come on, I've woken out my slumber. I tell you what, that sleep was so good. It really, I could pay for sleep. I could pay money to get sleep like that. Okay, that sleep and rest I got was so good. But since I've come on, I must have admitted about 6 or 7 people, 8 people into the chat room, because I know what's happening. Someone's come on here and I think, oh, this is good. Let me pass the link on to somebody else who needs this. So clearly, this is not just a topical discussion, Ismail. That you just have a guest speaker come in, Brother Ismail. Allahumma barik alaik. Allah bless you, bro. Jazakallah khairan. And you know, and just come in and you have a nice topic, and we've got a lot of people coming, and it's left. No. This is part of the brotherhood. You know, we had the brotherhood series. This is part of the. Actually, this is deeper than just material effort and support. It's more important than supporting your Muslim brother and sister materially. This is actually supporting people's minds, their psyche, and their hearts, their very souls. Because if people are not praying, if people can't function properly, if people are being destroyed in their homes by their families and by their selves, then at the end of the day, when it's time for us to take our shahada, for those of us who are not praying, those of us who are listening to music, taking drugs, and watching stuff on computer, and the salah comes and the salah goes, and people are not praying, you know, what is our end going to be? So, you know, really and truly, we need to focus on this as a priority. I thought brotherhood in Islam and the rights of brotherhood in Islam and the sisterhood in Islam was important, but you know, this type of mental health that we are suffering with in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this type of sickness did not exist except by only those who had a doubt in their religion. You know, but now it appears that it affects most of us. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people that were suffering like this were a slight minority, and you never used to find it from amongst the people from the muhajirun, those people who took their shahada in Makkah, and they went and they made the hijrah to Medina. They never had these illnesses, sicknesses, and stuff like this. The sicknesses, the true sickness, is a sickness of the heart. Is doubt in the heart. It's a type of disbelief. It's a type of disbelief that not believing in Allah and His Messenger, and believing that Islam is the right way, that there is other ways, that there is other ways in which we can socialize. There's other ways in which we can entertain ourselves. There's other ways in which we can get a benefit in this life. There's other ways other than the ways that's been set for us by the Quran and Sunnah. It's a type of spiritual disease that send you literally off your rocker, send you mad. You know what I'm saying? And those people that I've seen, who are majnoon, off their head. When you check their religion, and Abu Ilyas, he did touch on that, and I could not concur with him more. Allah Mubarak alayh. I mean, I could not concur and agree with him more. That the root is that their deen has been neglected, and they've pushed this thing Shaitan's way, going away from the dhikr of Allah Why did Allah, why did He prohibit alcohol? Because it what does it do? It takes one from the dhikr of Allah. It incites hatred from amongst each other, and it is the way of shaitan. You tell me what is more shaitanic than some of these games and things and WhatsApp groups and it's deep within the society, whether we're coming from a non-Muslim background and when we become Muslims, and whether it be people are born Muslims, these WhatsApp groups and these Facebook groups, and the amount of people I've had to censor and warn, and some of these Muslim groups on Facebook I've had to come out of because I'm continually telling people, no, this is not right. No, you can't put the sister up like this. No, you can't be showing sister. You can't be showing pictures of your feet. Does your husband know you're doing this? Does this? No, brother, you can't be saying that you're looking for a wife on Facebook. No, brother, you can't be doing this. No, sister, you can't be doing that. The constant, and then I feel like I'm like the religious police. You know what I'm saying? So someone is saying that someone mentioned about the discussion between and the communication between husband and wife. That lack of communication, that poison that goes in between husband and wife is enough to send the man nuts, and it's enough to send the woman off a rocker. And if the Muslim wife is off her head, she's in no position to look after the kids. And the husband, he can't go out to work properly. The husband is not being satisfied properly. Then he ends up going off somewhere else where he shouldn't be going, either watching stuff on devices or he's off having committing zina or finding some other way in which he can fulfill his needs. So this whole thing of communication, this whole thing of dealing with things properly from a deen level is absolutely crucial. We cannot sit down on this and have this just as a one-off thing. It's a very crux of the community.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan for that. What I see, those who are not qualified in mental health is more work on the prevention side, establishing families, establishing a network, in order to be able to stabilize people. So that's upon us now. We know what we can do, and then if something is out of our hands, and hopefully when Ismail Hassan sets up his network, we can then refer these individuals to him. So I think our priority one, we do have the Insight to Islam network. Send your numbers. It's a WhatsApp broadcast group. If you want to contact us for anything that is private, confidential, if you need help, we're trying to set up some network to support people, whether it be financially, whether it be spiritually, emotionally. We're trying to set up this network so that we can reduce the effects of mental health, reduce the effects of the COVID lockdown, etc., etc. But it takes your participation. One thing I would say is that there is a lack of contribution from people that come. Only 1 or 2 people sent questions. So alhamdulillah, I hope that means that everyone is okay, and that's a good sign. But as I said, don't hold things in. Send your number. We'll put you on the Insight to Islam broadcast group, and then we can start building our network. Finally, I'd just like to say again, Jazakallah khairan, Brian Ismail Hassan, for your contribution. Your work is invaluable, and no doubt, I think once you put your number out, you're going to be very, 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 very busy. But thanks for your time. It's been excellent conversation. All I can say after that, Jazakallah khairan for your contribution, Ismail Fraser. Ismail Hamza.
My name is Ismail Hamza Ibn Fraser. So you're not going to call me Ismail Hamza Ibn Fraser.
I'll call you Ismail Fraser. Okay, so brothers,
Ismail Fraser for sure.
Uncle Ismail Fraser. Brothers and sisters, all I can say, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Wa alaikum
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair,
Barakallahu
Abu
feekum.
Suleiman, Ismail, Jazak khair. I'm beginning to link.
وإياكم.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam to barakatuh.